We'll do a review on the Kutei Siches in Chelek Tezvav, volume 15. This is the third Sicha we're reviewing of the Parshas Vayechi. So, the Rebbe, this is a very interesting Rashi Sicha, but the Rebbe brings out some very interesting ideas with regards explaining what is really happening with Reuven and Yehuda, in which we see that while Reuven was being rebuked by Yaakov, and it was Yehuda that took over some of the special privileges that Reuven would have as a Bechoir, while it seems like Reuven's intentions in saving Yosef were even better than Yehuda's, and yet Yehuda is the one that ends up getting credit for saving Yosef, while Reuven gets rebuked. And Rebbe goes through a lot of these pratim, and Rebbe explains how, and also in the Yoinu Shel Torah, that it is not enough, and sometimes it hinders, to just be involved in your own service to Hashem, trying to be as righteous as you can. Sometimes you miss the boat and you don't save people's life because you were too busy thinking about your own elevation, your own tshuva. Whereas Yehuda, even though he was not at the same high level as Reuven, but yet he gets the credit because he ended up saving Yosef's life, as we will see as the Rebbe continues in the Sikha. But first, let's go step by step. Aleph. So this is the opening of Yaakov's brachas to his children. He's telling his children what's going to take place and giving them his brachas. So he starts off with Reuven b'choiri ato goymer. Reuven, you are my bechor, you're my firstborn. And technically he says, Yeser se'eis v'yeser oiz. You are with more force and with more strength. Basically, you deserve more than your brothers. As Rashi said, Rashi's mefarish, yes, pachas kamayim al toiser goymer, because you were hasty as water runs, you're not going to get those extras. So what does Rashi explain? Is Rashi mefarish the verted yeser seis? So Rashi says the roi hoyisol liyos yeser al achecha b'kahuna loshin nesias kapayim. That you were supposed to be more yeser. You have to be more than your brothers. A b'kahuna. So the word se'es is loshin nesias kapayim. Yeser se'es, to carry, to raise your hand. That is a reference to kahuna. So basically, Yaakov is saying to Reuven, you should have been more. You should have been the Kohanim. They should have been from the tribe of Reuven. Should have been. And also, Yeser Oz, Rashi continues, quoting Rashi, the Malchus, you should have been the first one. You should have been the king. Kings should have been from you. So what caused you to lose all these extra? To be the Kohanim, to see his Kapayim, to be the king, to be the leader. What caused you is Pachas Kamayim, the haste like water. Hapachas v'abaholo, that haste and that instant action that you took. Because you very quickly showed your anger, etc. And lekach, you lost out because of all this, because you showed your anger with haste and quickly to do this. Al Toisar says Rashi, Al Tarbe Litil Kol Hayisedis halolu shahoyu Islam. Altoisa, you lost out. You are not going to get all these extras that it was fit for you. Okay. So basically, Rashi brings out that he lost two things because of the haste that, as we will see later on, because the haste that he switched around the beds from the tent after Rachel's passing, from the tent of where Yaakov put it to the tent of Leah, to his mother. He stood up for his mother, and doing that behola, that caused you to lose all that. So we're talking about a loss of two things. We're talking about a loss of kahuna and a loss of malchus. However, in the Targum, we see he lost three things. The Targum partage the pasuk. The Targum translate the verse. Havechosi chosi lemeisev tloso chulkin. He was fit to get three parts. He talks about three things. Bichirusa, the firstborn part. Kuhunosa, that's the kuhuno. Malchusa, and that's the kingdom. As Reuven is given the royi, that Reuven was fit to bakumen, to receive three portions. Bechura, kuno, malchus, the firstborn, the priesthood, and kingdom. And they were not given to him. That is what's brought down in the Targum. That's also the way it's written in Targum and Bereshis Rabbah. So Darman verstehen. So why does Rashi only talk about two? Darman verstehen. Wie bald der Pasuk der Mond euch de Pula from Bechoira. The Pasuk also mentions the Maila from Bechoira. It says Pasuk starts off Ruven Bechoiri Ato. So it mentions right in the beginning that he was a Bechoir. So we're talking about the Bechoir over there. So since the Pasuk says already, the mention Ruven Bechoiri Ato, so Parvosha learned Rashi. So how come Rashi learns as Al Toisar that shouldn't get the extra? Why does it only referring to that he's not going to get when we say seis and ois? The more of seis and the more of the ois, then it's only kunamalchus. Unit zum inyan von Ruven b'chori ato gomer, and not to the idea of Ruven b'chori ato. V'shteit bas cholos hakosuf, which is written in the beginning of the pasuk. The Reuven b'chori ato is mentioned as the b'choir. We see the advantage of Reuven as a b'choir, and he's lost that too. Why is Rashi only talking about that other two? On the contrary, b'choiri ato, the whole beginning, the source and the reason for getting everything is b'choiri ato. Is that tam for roile kuno malchus? That's the reason why he's fit for kuno malchus. So, why does Rashi does not mention anything about the Bechira, and only mentions that he lost the Kahuna Malchus? Well, maybe the answer is maybe Rashi thinks he didn't lose the Bechira. The Rebbe is going to prove from the Rashis before, from a Beferish Pasuk, that Reuven did lose the Bechira. So you can't say that he didn't lose the Bechira. That's why it's not mentioned. Again, it's Zogun as Rashi halt, that Rashi's view is as al pipshute shel mikra, that according to the simple meaning of the pasuk is the bechayra from Reuven and Nitzugim Gevorn. The bechayra was not taken from Reuven. We cannot say that. It says very a specific, clear verse in Divrei Hayomim. Uvnei Reuven bechayra Yisrael. It talks about the sons of Reuven, who was Yisrael's oldest son, Yaakov's oldest son. It says the pasuk says, when he desecrated the bed, his bedspread, his father's bed, so his bechayra, the pasuk says clearly, bechayra was given to Bnei Yosef. So Rashi cannot say anything different than the pasuk. So it's very clearly that he did lose it. But Rashi himself actually says it. Furthermore, with etliche psukim freyer, with several verses earlier, is Rashi alein mefarish l'tein pirush. Rashi himself explains. Okay, one pirush. Hashem echad hu ha-bechira. When he says that he gave Yosef one shechem, so it says he gave him the bechira. For Yosef shnei chalokim, that the sons of Yosef get two parts. Unoch früher in Parshas Vayishlach, even earlier, is Rashi mefarish bechira Yaakov, and Rashi says over there bechira lenachlo, and Rashi says that he was a bechira for nachlo, and that was something that he had. So the question is, that he was a bechor Yaakov for nachla, for inheritance, a bechor for service, that would be the kohuna, and a bechor siska bechor leminyan for counting. And the bechor was given to Yosef only for the tribes that he became two tribes of instead of Reuven. So that means that's haste as his zugenommen geworden, the bechor. That at least for one aspect, for the aspect that he was two tribes were given to Yosef, was taken away, the Shvatim, as far as the Shvatim Reuven. So the Vayishkav Gomer, because of the error of Reuven that he lied, was Izki given to Yosef, and that was given to Yosef. So how are we going to reconcile that? So it means that Rashi holds that he did lose that. So why is there no mention in the pasuk over here? So the Rebbe is going to explain now that maybe the reason why Rashi only talks about the Kohuna, the Malchus, is because those were Yeser. It says Al Toisar, those were the extras. The Bechor is not the extra. The pasuk says Yeser says V'Yeser is Al Toisar. That means the extras, but the regular thing the pasuk doesn't address here. But that alone, says the Rebbe, is the problem. Why take are we only talking about Mele Rashi talks like that because that's mashma from the pasuk, because it's mashma we're talking only about the extras that they're taken away. Well, why would the pasuk take not talk about that the bechor itself was taken away? Base the chayre what man geken sagen von diuk haloshen hakosuf al toisar, because of the pasuk's language that it says al toisar. So that means that we're actually talking about the extras we're talking about. That's what it says al toisar. Was the pasuk benutzt in shayches to kol ela, where the pasuk uses when it says that all of these, as Rashi says, that he lost out, was Reuven not mafsid given, that Reuven lost his muchach. So it's evident that the pasuk is oisen to memayed zayin nor di mailis. This verse is coming to take away only the advantages by welchen der steht der loshen un yasres, those that the pasuk uses the loshen of extra. Those are the things that he lost. So these are the things that the pasuk is telling us over here. That he lost, which is what? Yeser sa'is, yeser ois, which is kuno malchus. So that's what he lost. Al toisar, these yeser. Mashenke Milos Bechores, as opposed to the advantage of Bechores, was nit der mont. The Loshen Yeser over there is no mention of Yeser. Is nit nichlal in the miut fun al toisar, then that is not included when we say not getting it al toisar. You're not getting the extras, but it has to be an extra not to get. But the Bechor is not an extra. The Torah doesn't use the Loshen as Yeser, Yeser. You're not getting the extras. So that's why Rashi doesn't bring it down. So this, the Rebbe says, only proves that the pasuk isn't talking about Bechora. The pasuk is only talking about the Sis Kapayim and Malchus. However, the question is in the pasuk itself. Obedos is not a raya mitzad loshen hakosuf. This is only evidence because the language the pasuk used with pirush hakosuf, the meaning of the verse. As though that here we're discussing zichnit. Wegen dem hefset for Bechora, we're not talking about the loss of the Bechora, as bleibt aber nicht verstandig, but it's still not understood. Dem Tam from Etzem HaInyan, the reason for the idea itself. Pravos is Bechoira anders from Kuna Malchus. Why is it different than Kuna Malchus? The Pasuk read nor, the Pasuk only discusses wegen Reuven's hefset from Kuna Malchus about his loss of the Kahuna and the Malchus, und nicht wegen sein Verlinien in der Bechoira, not the fact that he lost the Bechoira, Linyan Ashvatim. Rashi himself said that at least as far as the tribes goes, he lost it out to Yosef. Yosef became two tribes, not him. So how come Taka the Pasuk is not talking about that? And now the Rebbe is going to go on to explain, to bring on the next Pasuk, which talks about Yehuda. And then we're going to try to equate what Yehuda gained while Reuven lost. Gimel, weiter of Pasuk, later on the Pasuk, Gur Aryeh Yehuda, that like a young lion is Yehuda. And the Pasuk says, Miterev B'ni Oliso V'goymer, that my son, as we'll see, the Rebbe will teach, not Miterev B'ni. The B'ni means Yehuda, as the Rebbe will teach from the Rashi. That from the Terev B'ni Oliso, my son Yehuda, you've gone out and you've been exonerated from the suspicion that you killed Yosef. That's what Yaakov is telling Yehuda. Taich Rashi Miterev. So Rashi says Miterev. That I suspected you. I suspected that Yosef was murdered. That Yosef was eaten by the animal, by a wild animal. That was Yehuda. She thought maybe Yehuda is the one that did it. So B'ni Oliso, you've come out from that chashash. You have been taken away from that suspicion. V'zehu Yehuda shenim shel Aryeh. And this is, we're talking about when we say Gur Aryeh, this is Yehuda who has been equated to an Aryeh. So the Chayero, the wild animal, when he suspected him, that was going on Yehuda. Yehuda, the wild animal, Fartsuk, that ate up that Torah. So B'ni Olisa. So as Rashi explains, so Laktos Atzmecha ve'amarto, but you actually have gone up, which means you removed yourself. And you actually saved them because you said, Ma betza goymer. What money is there in killing the Chisinu as Domoy? So you said, and they sold it. So that suspicion that I had on you of murdering Yosef, Elisa, you have B'ni Elisa, you have gone out, and because you actually are the one that saved him by taking him out of the pit, by saying Ma betza, and that way you saved his life. Rashi brings another case here, the case in which Tamar was about to be killed. Shahoida and Yehuda admitted Sotko Mimeni that she is righteous, and he saved her life of Tamar. So this Rashi also needs a lot of explanation. Darfim verstehen. So Bechlal Rashi brings in Harigas Tamar over here, the killing of Tamar, who's talking about Tamar. Darfim verstehen. Von dem was Rashi is Moitze Bechein Barigas Tamar Bechula. He adds the words Bechein Barigas Tamar in sein Pirush B'ni Elisa. Rashi explains that when he explains B'ni Elisa, that you've gone out, he also says B'ni Elisa, it means Tamar as well. But unit oif b'pirusha oif vort miteref. But when Rashi explained the word miteref, over there Rashi did not bring down Bechlal the story of Tamar over there. So that really means the Rebbe is going to say that miteref does not apply to Tamar. It's only B'ni Elisa applies to two things. First of all, from Yosef, that he saved him, and from Tamar, that he saved her. So it makes it very difficult that the first part of the pasuk, Miteref, is only talking about Yosef. And the second part, B'ni Elisa, is talking about Tamar as well. So is muchach. So the fact that Rashi brings it down in the word B'ni Elisa, and not a miteref is muchach l'chayre. So it seems, apparently it's evident as v'chein ba'arigas tomar v'chulu, that when it says also ba'arigas tomar batzitzich nitzum vort miteref, that doesn't go teref, that tomar was supposed to be teref. Marigas tomar, from killing tomar, just like the teref for Yosef. It does teach their medrash miteref, mitarfa shel tamar. The medrash taka teaches that the killing of Tamar is included in the word miteref, not just b'ni Olisa. The Medrash says miteref means both, miteref, teref of Yosef and teref of Tamar, and b'ni Olisa would mean both. But Rashi doesn't explain it on miteref; he only explains on b'ni Olisa, nor to diverte b'ni Olisa, only by the word b'ni Olisa. Rashi brings in Tamar there. So as Olisa meant oich atzveit aliyah. Rashi says it means another aliyah. You've elevated yourself another time with silu and removed from Narigas Tamar, from killing Tamar. Isn't it move on? So it's not understood. Since the word b'nei Elisa come miterev, they come as a follower of the word miterev. So b'nei Elisa, my son, you've gone up, has to seem to follow miterev. How could the miterev be meaning just Yosef? And then b'nei Elisa is vikem and zogun. How could you vikem is if an undertale? How could you separate it and taichin and translate as b'nei Elisa is koilut tzveizach? The b'nei Elisa means two things. The ace as miterev main blois einzach, that only means one. Miterev b'nei means one thing. B'nei Elisa, you've gone up, you removed yourself, and we're bringing in another thing which doesn't have the miterev. How is that? And besides, why do we have to bring in Tamar Bechlal over here? Oich. Isn't it move on? What is Bechlal der Hechrech im Shutesh Mikra? What is the evidence in the simple meaning of the pasuk? So, was ist Bechlal der Hechrech im Shutesh Mikra zu sagen? As Mitolisot Yaakov gemeint, why do we have to say in the literal sense of explaining the pasuk that Yaakov meant when he said Olisa, but Yaakov gemeint nit nor dem Gshatz from Torah Yosef, not just the suspicion about Yosef that he is the one that was Torah Yosef, nor Eichon Arigas Tamar, that it includes also Arigas Tamar. Warum Rashi sagt nicht? Because Rashi does not say, as in the Medrash, there's two separate commentaries. Seems the same commentary. Nor there is Moisif, al Sahemshech. He adds as a continuation, V'chein Baharigas Tamar. The same thing is in the in killing Tamar. So there's an additional. So why is this at all brought down over here? So the Rebbe says in Dalit, maybe we're going to say that actually Miterev B'ni is also talking about Miterev is also including Tamar. Rashi, the Rebbe proved from the fact, because Rashi explains Tamar only by B'nai Elisa, that's not the part of Miterev. But the Rebbe says, no. Maybe Miterev also is going on Tamar. Why does Rashi not say it over there and wait till B'nai Elisa? That is because first Rashi needed to explain the meaning. There's two ways of learning the B'nai Elisa. Either it's Miterev B'ni. If it's Miterev B'ni, then it cannot be talking about Tamar because Tamar is not B'ni. If the B'ni refers to Yosef, Miterev B'ni, then my son, Yosef was Tarif, then it couldn't be talking about Tamar. So first Rashi has to make clear that the teref, the beni, is not the teref beni. So miteref and the beni Elisa is Yehuda. Once we say beni Elisa is Yehuda, then it can also refer to Tamar. But Tamar is also part of the teref. So that l'chayra we should be able to answer that. Dalet. If the erste shaila on the first question that we said that it seems that she's only comes into play later on, when we can zogun, we can enter. Rashi means Taka zu sagen, as Miterev bezieht sich zu beide Yosef und Tomer. Miterev Taka means both. The question was, how could we change from the middle? But maybe Taka means both. Und das, was schreibt, V'chein barigas Tomer, the fact that Rashi writes V'chein barigas Tomer v'chulu, erst noch im Pirush B'nai Elisa, only after the pasuk of B'nai Elisa, is kedei zu bavornen, that is in order to answer Be'azoi miterev can mean harigas tomer. Rashi say how miterev can mean harigas tomer, because if we don't explain that beni it goes on the olisa and it's not miterev beni, we won't be able to explain miterev that it should go. If miterev beni means Yosef, then it can't mean tomer. But once we explain that miterev is stop, then beni olisa. That bini goes on Yehuda, then on Yehuda go on both, then Miteref also goes on both. Magdi. Rebbe brings down, as eine Franzwege fahren wie zu teichen them, Pshat, there's two ways to translate to the meaning of Miteref bini Olisa. Two possibilities. Aleph, number one, bini kum behemshich zum Wort Miteref. That bini comes as a follow-up to Miteref. Miteref b'ni Yosef Elisa Yehuda. From the teref of b'ni, my son Yosef, Elisa Yehuda went up. So that means that the b'ni is Yosef and Elisa is Yehuda. But based, the other pshat is b'ni batzitzich to Elisa. That b'ni goes to Elisa, b'ni Elisa. Miteref fun inyan hateref, miteref from the idea of teref. B'ni Elisa, stu mein Sohn Yehuda, Eligman, you went up, so the B'ni is Yehuda. When oid me nemt on, the ersten Pshat, if we learn according to the first Pshat, as B'ni is mechuvet zu Meturv, that it's Mitarev B'ni, can man not learn as Mitarev B'ni is Kolich Tomer, then you can't learn that Tarev B'ni would include Tomer. And therefore, either Rashi is Moisi, B'chein Barigas Tomer, before Rashi brings harigas tomer. Muz sich früher aufstellen auf B'nai Elisa. So Rashi has to first stop to tell us what B'nai Elisa, and to tell us over there and caution us, azei geheren zusammen, that B'nai Elisa belong together. Once they belong together, then we can tell you that it also includes, the teref also includes tomer. But the fact is Rashi might take from Posik auf the word B'nai. Rashi also b'ni miterev b'ni Elisa. So Rashi brings down the word b'ni. Even though Rashi is just saying you remove yourself, so you should say Elisa, not b'ni Elisa. The word Elisa. There is only you have to know Elisa that he went up. Was Rashi brings it down. Was davke can der word miteref, because once we know that it means b'ni Elisa, then we can say miteref is koilo. That would include Svein Yonim. Harigas Tomer. Also, that will include Harigas Tomer. Once we know that b'ni is not Yosef, and b'ni is Yehuda, then we can say Yehuda from two things. From both miteref, two terefs. How does Rashi know to teach Taka that B'ni Elisa, not Miterev B'ni, that it's B'ni Elisa, that B'ni goes on Yehuda, not on Yosef? When Rashi's hechrech of them Pirush as B'ni is behemshich to Elisa, that Beni follows Olisa, that Beni Olisa. Yaakov Avinu is doch dog given oisun to Meshabeir Zayin Yehuda. Because what was Yaakov's intention here was to praise Yehuda. The Bald as euch on der Hausafa from Beni, even without saying Beni Olisa, our statement as Miteref Yeit Eif Yosef. We know Miteref Olisa. We know that it goes on Yosef. We Bald Mikifin by Indam Loshen Teref. So the Mele is the Hadgoshe as Miteref, that Miteref from Beni. We know Miteref, if the Beni goes Torah Yosef. So we know that Yosef is the Torah. So we don't have to say Miteref Beni, my son Yosef. We know already it's Yosef. So is that Gosha as Miteref is those from Beni, that doesn't add praise. Oh, because it was a Teref Beni of Yosef and you went up with it. If I can't, that means you're diminishing the Shvach, because maybe the only thing you did it is because of Beni. But Adrabah, if you're emphasizing Teref Beni Yosef over here, but does Git, this actually adds an Isinas Mokum to Zogan that allows room to say, to argue, as not their fall, but those is Teref from Yaakov Zon. It's only Teref Beni. Und sein Bruder, and then it's his brother. That's why Olisa. That's why he removed himself. But we're trying to say that he removed himself. Why would we emphasize that it was Beni? The Rebbe is Pshuta Shal Mikra, der zweite Reifen. That's why the Pshuta Shal Mikra is the second way, as it is Miterev Beni Yehuda Olisa, and therefore it also goes. Actually, the Terev goes also on Tamar, and that's why Rashi leaves it for there. So the Rebbe accepts that. But as bleibt aber nicht verstanden Kanal, we have still the second question: why do we need to mention Tamar at all? Who tells us? Why do we? What's wrong with just Terev Beni talking about the story with Yosef? As bleibt aber nicht verstanden Kanal, as mentioned earlier. And Bestakas Miterev can mean euch Marigas Tamar. That Miterev can also mean from the killing of Tamar. For is over Rashi's Hechrech, but where is Rashi's proof as Miterev made by the Zachen that Miterev means both things? Or Befrat as by Tamar, state need the Loshen Toref. There's no Loshen Toref over there. So Miterev, we're saying okay, the Medrash uses Torfa. Tamar was supposed to be talking, but the language of Teref is only by Yosef. So why would Rashi have to want to include also the story of Tamar? And the Rebbe is going to explain now, first of all, based about the whole story over here, that why is the kingdom was taken away from Yosef and given to Yehuda? Why was he? I will take away from Yehuda. What take away from Reuven and given to Yehuda? Hey, but those verstehen behagdim atmiya kloli is a general surprise, wondering, things that is difficult in them inyan in this idea. Der Yisrael na Malchus was zugenommen geworden von Reuven. The advantage of kingdom that was taken from Reuven und abgegeben worden zu Yehuda and given to Yehuda. There steht in Divrei Yomim, as it says in Divrei Yomim, ki Yehuda govar be'achiv u'nogid menu, that he became more powerful than his brother, and he became a leader, nogid menu. So that was taken from Reuven, given to Yehuda. But das what Yaakov gemeint mit the Werter, that is what Yaakov meant with the words, and he said, Gur Aryeh Yehuda. He says, like a young lion is Yehuda. Rashi explained, we're talking about government, kingdom. Was his im gegeben geworden, that was given to Yehuda. That, of course, is the descendants of Yehuda, David, Shlomo, und der Tam, Farvos mit dem abgegeben zu Yehuda. Why was it given to Yehuda? Steht in der Brache Gufa. So the Brache says that why? Miteref b'ni Oliso. From the Teref b'ni Oliso. Rashi's Messiah is ein Pirush. As Rashi concludes this explanation of Miteref b'ni Oliso, it says, that because you went and you saved Yosef, Miteref b'ni Oliso, and also Tamar, but Miteref b'ni Oliso, and therefore Kora Shochav Klovi Mikveh. So we're giving Yehuda all this credit and all this payment for what? Because Bnei Elisa, that he didn't kill him, but what? He put him into the pit. Is that a pit where there's snakes and scorpions? And I mean, take that back. I mean, to sell him to the Ishmaelim for money, for a pair of boots, for Mabetza, he didn't move him. The Milo from Yehuda, what is the advantage of Yehuda? Was misali given from them that he removed himself. From that was chedashticho chashadaticho b'torev Yosef. I suspected you, Yaakov said. I suspected you when I said torev Yosef. You meant Yehuda. Chayerach was eat my meant Yehuda. How did he remove himself from that chashash? What money is value? So that is something that he saved him. But Yehuda saved him, but Reuven is the one that tried to save him. He's the Chayr given by Reuven. He erzählt in Parshas Vayechi, as the pasuk relates in the portion of Vayechi. As Reuven had gesagt, lo inakenu nafesh. Let's not smite his soul. We'll not kill him. So that's why is Yehuda the servant of Malchus? Because he saved Yosef by saying Mabetza when Reuven wanted to do the same thing. And further, the second thing with Tomer. Onech the Mailen Yehuda was at Meidi given that he had agreed in the story of Tomer. He said, Tzotkom imeni, that she's righteous than me, or that she's from her, that it's his child. We also find that by Reuven, that he repented and he regretted. The fact that you desecrated, what Yaakov is rebuking Reuven, that when you desecrated my bed, which the Shechina goes on by switching around the arrangements of the beds, when Yehuda did that, when Reuven did that, Virashi is mefarish in Parshas Vayechi, and he was doing tshuva. Reuven was asking Hashem for forgiveness, because as Rashi said in the Parshas Vayechi, he wasn't there when the brothers sold him. Reuven wasn't there. He was occupied in his cloth and his fasting, for mixing up the beds of his father. So Reuven was also doing tshuva, no different than Yehuda, who did tshuva. He said, if you consider it in the Beit Protim, in both of these details, in the trying to save Yosef, and repenting for their sin, is Reuven Maila l'chayra aggressive of Yehuda's. It seems that Reuven's advantage is greater than Yehuda's. Number one, Aleph. Those of us Yehuda Matzel given Yosef from Gehar given, the fact that Yehuda saved Yosef for not getting killed is doch nicht given mit der Kavone im unzukern Loviv. That wasn't with the intention. Didn't save him to bring him back to his father, like we find by Reuven. Reuven said la shiva la'achiv. He put him into the pit. He wanted to bring him back. He wasn't. Nor bichdei im zu verkaufen zu den Ishmaelim. He wanted to sell him to Shmuel. He wasn't bearing him back home. Ubefrat, especially. Aleph, as a rot gehad b'koyach im zurück zu bringen zu Yaakov. He did have the power. If he wanted to, he could have prevailed to have him back, sent home to his father. The Rashi break that up. Rashi says, why did they descend? They brought Yehuda down later on. And the Shvatim told him, Ilo martu Shiva, if you told us to bring him back, we would have listened to you. So that means that Yehuda didn't really save Yosef to bring him back to his father. Base, and number two, as ein Zogun ma betzam, when he says ma betzam, Goimer, main kipirush Rashi ma moment. So essentially, what was he saying? He's saying, what monetary gain is there for us? What monetary gain is there for us if we kill him? So it's not like he wants to save him. He just doesn't want to benefit from it. What benefit? Does haste, which means the fact that he didn't allow to kill Yehuda is tam, is for the reason because you would earn nothing of this. Let's go and sell him to Ishmael. At least he said, let's make some money on the deal from his brother Yosef. So, in that ways, with regards to Yosef, Yehuda never intended to bring him back, and Yehuda's intention was to make some money on the deal. Compare that with Reuven, Mashenki Reuven, he wished to bring him back to Yaakov. With the Pasuk says it clearly, he wanted to save him to bring him back to his father. And Beis, by the second story, by the Rehidah for Yehuda of Maisa Tomer, when Yehuda admitted about the story with Tomer, Gefindt man nor all that we find it was one time he did tshuva that we find. He said she was righteous than me. We don't find him doing tshuva for a lengthy time. And Beis v'ikar, and the main issue over there, if he had not admitted then he would be causing for Tomer to be killed. Together with the fetuses, the twins that were in her womb, in Tamar's womb. She was pregnant with the twins. Is moving at Yehuda at Gemusma design. So he had no choice. He had to admit. So the admitting of Yehuda is a one-time thing that we find, and it was something that he had to. Like taken by Reuven, but when we talk about Reuven, Aleph is the tshuva is given in an Eifim. So in what way did he do tshuva? As kama v'kama yoron know them, but that Al's mamshech given tshuvaton. For many years afterwards, he continued to do tshuva. Or Mechiras Yosef is Geshen mitarum 9 yor noch bilbo Yitzuavim, because the sale of Yosef took place around 9 years after his mixing up his father's beds. Still, he did tshuva. That's why he wasn't there when they sold him. So that was a long time. And Beis Shuvas is given in an Eifim. How did he do tshuva in a way from Osuk B'Sakov B'Tanisa? He was preoccupied with his sack and his fast. It wasn't just many years later, but he was still fully doing tshuva. And Gimel, and number 3, the Pula from Bilbi Yitzuaviv, this is what he did, that he confused the beds of his father, is given Kipirush Rashi, was Rashi explains about Tova El Ben Imui. He was demanding his mother's shame. He was taking on for his mother, because when Rachel died, he thought that his mother deserves to have Yaakov's bed there. He did it because of honor of his mother. To the extent because he did it for that reason, we don't count this really as a sin. Rashi brings that up, as Rashi brings down, the Lamdenu, the Torah says the Rosh Shnei Mosar, Lamdenu Shekulim Shavim, that all the sons were equal, Kulam Tzadikim, they're all righteous. Shaloi Chota Reuben did not sin in the Riber, and that's why I feel the Torah, even at the time that he made a mistake, he still called the B'chor. And yet, he had a good excuse, and it was for his mother's covet. It's not really a sin. And still, from deswegen hat Reuven marbig them b'tshuva. Reuven did a lot of tshuva. So, what do we have the problem? So, once we compare this, to move b'yeser. So, based on this, it's very surprising. We can miterev b'ni Elisa. How could it be the fact that Yehuda saved from the suspicion by selling Yosef, Zainatam, that should be a reason that Yehuda is right to Malchus, that he is more worthy than kingdom, maybe more than Reuven. And the Rebbe will explain now what is the issue over here in a way that for Malchus, it's mainly important what you do for the other rather than what you do for yourself. Maybe in level, Reuven was a much higher level than was Yehuda. But practically speaking, to benefit the others over there is where Yehuda came in. Reuven's tshuva and Reuven's good intentions did not change anything. On the contrary, because he was busy with himself fasting and doing tshuva, that gave the opportunity for the brothers to sell the Yosef. But Yehuda, notwithstanding that it was done for ulterior motives, he ended up saving him. Let's see. Well, but das verstehen. First, to understand it, he says to him, "Pachas kamayim al toiser goymer," because you were hasty like water. But Rashi explains it. Umi goram loch lahafsid kol eila. What caused you to lose all this is pachas kamayim. It's that haste like water. Pachas ve'abahola, that haste and that excitement that should meharta laharis. This spontaneous, without thinking, just going for it. You quickly showed your anger. And therefore, you don't get the extra. Don't take. You're not going to get all these additions. What is this haste that you hasted? What was it so hasty? Rashi continues with his commentary of that you went up to your father's bed when you desecrated the story of Reuven of rearranging the beds. The Hemshech Loshan Rashi in his movement from the flow of Rashi's language is understood as the Siba Farvos Reuven hot nidbakumen. The reason why he did not get all these extras is not the etzem pu'ula from Alisa Mishkeva Avicha. It's not the actual fact that he went up to his father's bed, arranged it, nor the pachas kamayim, but rather it's the haste, like the water. Hapachas ve'abahola. It's that haste and that behola. That you were quick to show your anger. See, nor was that pachas. How did it express that haste? That expressed itself. Umawa pachas. What was the haste? In them inyan funalisa, that you went up, that you did what you did. What is the lack of sinking through and the lack of the response in a spontaneous, a way of anger or quickly, that is what is the main problem. It expressed itself in what it expressed itself. Das heißt, von dem, was Yaakov is Magdim und Madgish Bazunda, the fact that Yaakov introduces and emphasizes separately the Chisonim from Pachas Kamayim, the lacking that there was haste like water, learned Rashi Arois. So Rashi learns from this as Inyan, as in an Inyan from Bilbo Yitzuov, that in this matter of confusing the arrangements of his father's bed, Zanadotse brought in there two details. Aleph, that Etzim Bilbo, the actual mixture himself, what he did, and Beis, but this is given in an Eifim Pachas Kamayim, that it was hasty as water. Und as for jeden von die zwei Brotim is given a besonder Einish. And for each of the two details, there was a separate punishment for the two details, for the haste and for what he did. Aleph. But then was said will given you of it for the fact that he mixed the father's bed is for him zugenommen geworden the Bechira. For that he lost it, was taken away the Bechira. Which means that he didn't lose the whole Bechira quoted from Rashi before, but at least as far as the Shvatim, that Yosef gets to have the two tribes and not Reuben. In Divrei Yomim, as it says in the Divrei Yomim, ubechalelo Yitzui Aviv, not the Bechira also that the Bechira was given to that extent, at least that he lost that Bechira. But Rashi brings that up gleich in Parshas Vayishlach, and Rashi brings in Parshas Vayishlach that nit no Bechira liyosef. That Bechira Rebbe quoted before, that the Bechira was given to Yosef. So that came for what he did. The farbos pachas kamayim, that he was quick like water. Meharta leharis kascha, that you were quick to show your anger, is altoisar. Then you don't get altar belitl kol you say this. For that you don't get these extras. The extra you don't get because of the haste. Huno malchus kenal sibeit. That's the extras you don't get, is because of the pachas kamayim, because it wasn't something which was deliberate, but it came spontaneous in a way of reaction, in a way of haste. They're beating that. So what's the explanation? Zion. The chiluk tzvishun kohuna malchus b'choira. What's the difference between the kohuna malchus and b'choira? Rebbe is going to explain that b'choira is something yourself. Kohuna malchus is service for the others. And therefore, the haste which took away from the others, that's not something which Kuhuna Malchus needs to be deliberate. Let's see. The Chelek zwischen Kuhuna Malchus and Bechira. The Meiles from Kuhuna Malchus drücken sich heus bei Iker und befrat Binyanenu. How do they express themselves? Mainly, and especially in ours, in Shayches to Andere, that they are connected to others. In sehr vernehmen sich mit andere, the way they occupy themselves with others. That's what a kohen and a melech do. They take care of others. In Yonim from a melech, what's the idea of a melech? Is asher yetzel fleim gomer. He goes in front of them. He goes on a war for them. Zu bazorgun di Yonim utzrachim from their Medina, to take care of the matters and the needs of the country. And as a weiter, Rashi taich do gur. Rashi translated here gur. Hamoitzi ma'mevias Yisrael. He is the one that takes out and brings in the in. Over there, that he kneels and he leans, which is with regards to Yehuda, each person under his vine, etc. So Malchus is taking care, making sure the needs of the people, lead them, whether it's in the war, whether it's sitting under their vine, it is taking care of others. Also, priesthood was for the main thing of Kuna. Rashi Taich Do, if Yeser says, when he say, what is the priesthood? One of the main things is Nesias Kapayim. That is raising their hands, benching Eden, to bless Eden. Also to teach the Eden, the laws of Torah, state the post says you come to the Kohanim, they'll tell you the laws of the judgment based on the Torah that they teach you. So they're teaching, blessing, that's Kohana. As opposed to that's an advantage as it relates, it touches the Bechor himself, the person himself. So leave their Milo because of the advantage and the importance of the firstborn, he is the one that gets double in the nachla. It relates to the Bechor for the person, not as it relates to another. This is the Hasbor in the Tzvei Protmenau, and this explains the two details of above. That you were haste like water to show your anger. As that as soon as he thought, by him it made sense, as that the father's bed need to be in the tent of Leah. Is geworden kas. So he got angry. Somebody else. He was impulsive, basically. He was impulsive to go ahead to act. He did it impulsively, immediately. You quickly showed your anger. And he confused and mixed up the beds, the arrangement of his father. This is by somebody else. So his haste and his quick to act impacted others. That is a contact which is the opposite of worrying, of making sure of the benefit of another person. The riber is the einish for them given. Also, the punishment for this was mida connected mida, was measure for measure. Amen. Hot by in zugenommen, uno malchus that they took him away, uno malchus. Mashenkein der etzem kilkul from mevalvel zayin yitzui oviv, as opposed to the actual what he did, the kilkul, what he did, not the haste. But what he did, he was ruined about the Yitzhak and was weist. As a rotatos got in sein Trachten, that shows that he made a mistake in his thinking. As mitzad kibud imoy, because he thought that because of the honor of his mother, which was shivchas achois imi teitzorali imi, should the maid servant of my mother's sister, which means Rochel's shivcha, should she become the tzora li'imi, the second wife to my mother, and that she gets the bed of Yaakov? He thought that was wrong, and therefore he moved it. He thought that his father's bed should be in the tent of Leah. The baldas der tos is a kilkul in zichalein. That was a mistake that he ruined. That was in himself. The riber. So therefore, similar to this, he lost. Then he lost that important that it has to do with himself, the Bechira. That's why he lost that, because that was the kilkul. Move on. The chiluk ikri. Now we also understand this main difference. How much did actually Reuven lose when he lost the Bechira? So we understand as Loit Pirush Rashi Pshutush Mikra, that according to Rashi and the simple meaning of the pasuk is Klolus Ina Bechira Nit Suginom geworden von Reuven. The general Bechira was not taken away; he didn't lose all of his Bechira. It is given Bechira Nachla B'chulu. He remained a Bechira for inheritance. He would get the Pishnaim, would get the double. Not all of the Bechira was taken from him. But not Suginom with the Bechira Inyan Hashvatim. Only for the tribes. Aber Kuna Malchus was hat den ganzen verloren. But the Kuna Malchus, he lost totally. Why is that? How come he only lost part of the Bechira, but not, and the other things he lost totally? They were called Kuna Malchus. Since the mixing up his father's bed is nita chomor, that isn't as a serious offense. Reuven's kavana is given to Tavei Zain Elbin Imai because his intent was he was standing up and demanding the shame of his mother. Biz as Virashi's Mefarish Kinal Sivei, to the extent Rashi says Sivei, Reuven, that essentially he didn't sin. Even the time when he was still a b'choyer. Was ein tshuva is given in an oifen, and his tshuva was in a way that also koyu b'sak b'tanisei kam v'kamashoni was occupied in his sack and his fast for many years. The riber, but when Lois tzugenumen the b'choyerli and ashvatim, he only lost part with regards to the shvatim. And now we'll understand why Yehuda actually deserved it, even though we asked the Rebbe asked the Chayre, Reuven was more righteous and more exemplary, and then Yehuda gets it. Chestos is oich the Hasbora was the Yeser for Malchus is abgegeben worden to Yehuda. Why Malchus was given to Yehuda? So Libdem was miterev b'nei Elisa that he has left that chashash. Agamas by Reuven is given aggressive mailu by Yehuda Kinal. Even though, as the Rebbe went through before, Reuven had a greater advantage than Yehuda, and yet Yehuda gets it. The chiluk tzvish miterev b'nei Elisa, the difference between miterev b'nei Elisa, what was accomplished from Yehuda, and the Reuven, what's the difference over there? Yosef's life was saved. Durch miterev b'nei Elisa from Yehuda, from the fact that he saved him, he sold him, but he saved him, is lapoil aroizgi kumen hatzola for hatzveiten. So there was actually, in actuality, another person was saved. In actuality, so there was a benefit. Yehuda zogum mabetza. When Yehuda said, "What use is there?" So that also that actually benefited Tamar. Tamar was saved, but Matzlven Yosef unargeno. That killed her from. Let's kill her. I'm sorry, this is not by Tamar. This is by Yosef. When the brother wanted to kill him, Yosef, Yehuda's intervention literally saved Yosef. Okay, he says, what are we going to do? Well, let's not kill him. When they took him out from the pit, and the pit itself was a very dangerous place, as we learn, aim by mine, but there are snakes and scorpions. So that had by Yosef. When he said by Tamar, she's righteous to me, is Tamar geratet geworden from Sreifa. So Tamar was saved from burning. So his actions saved people. But on the other, even though that is true in his intentions, and even aggressive Judas or greater than Judas, is thus ober amayla in im shelatzma. That's an advantage for him. If you're looking who's a greater tzaddik, Reuven is a greater tzaddik than Yehuda. But nit b'shaychet, but not when we look in connection to Toivas Vatzolos, to the goodness and the saving of the other person. Those was erod gizok, the fact that Reuven said, "Loina kenu nafesh, we're not going to kill him. Hashlichu esel abayir hazel, let's throw him into this pit. The manhatzel esel beyodum la'shiv alaviv, to save him from their hands, to bring him back to his father. Vaistav kavanose, that points to his intention. But in actuality, is Yosef durch them nitarois from sakonos misas? Rav, he did not take him out from the danger of dying from hunger. Nor yod al tishlchaboy. He says, let's not put our hand in him. He dies by himself. And especially the pit that he put him in, is the point, is the chosh makrab yeshbei. There were snakes and scorpions there. So he wasn't even really saving him. Although, as in the simple meaning we can say, as Reuven had the funit give us, Reuven didn't know, and this is where he put him in there. Is the river nit shuldig in them? And maybe he's not guilty. Reuven is not guilty because he didn't know. Is the chaber lepoil in Yosef Yonasakona? But in actuality, he didn't save Yosef. Yosef was in danger. He put him into a pit with all the scorpions and the snakes. The same thing is when we talk about Reuven's greatness, that he continuously did such a great tshuva for his sin. He was preoccupied with his sackcloth and his fasting because he confused his father's bed. Is those given an Indian, that was a matter, was that did not involve to another person. It was himself, his own righteousness. And the Rebbe points out a further thing. If he wouldn't be so busy with himself, so maybe he would have been there and he would have stopped his brothers from selling him. Nochmer. Then Reuben would not given also when he would not be occupied in his cloth and his fasting base when Yosef was sold. Volt so at that point he would have he might have found an advice to Ratzven Yosef to save Yosef. Shame that früher gewirkt auf seine Brüder, but I can enough see that he was able, Reuben was able to influence his brother not to kill him and to put him into the pit. Maybe he could have found a way to save him totally. And in the end to bring him back to his father. It turns out that specifically because he's given, he was so busy with himself. But then it was great manners, it was this sack, a tinus, doing tshuva, but still it was all about himself. He's gekommen zu Bechides Yosef, that brought the soul of Yosef. And the Riber, that's why is Davke the Meterev B'ni Alisa from Yehuda. It's that when Yehuda's coming up clean from saving Yehuda, saving Yehuda coming up clean and saving that he saved Yosef's life. So in fact, he put himself in for another person. Was I made it to admit it as it relates to saving another person. Abavais, that proves as that he is the one that's fit for kingdom. Mashenkin Reuben, as opposed to Reuben, was the his greatness from tshuva is a mile for sich. That's an advantage in and of itself. And therefore, the general he deserved because he didn't lose everything. But not to be fit. Now, based on the above, is moving the pastures. So now we understand simply if Avos Rashi's Mefarish, why Rashi explains that my son, you've come up from these both incidents, from the teref of Yosef and Tamar, Yaakov had gewollt herausbringen the Meile from Yehuda legabe Reuben. Yaakov wanted to bring out the advantage of Yehuda relative to Reuben. Was the Faris Gurari, that's why his line is given to Melucha. Then he didn't have Melucha, that's Melucha. Ibri gave him from Reuben to Yehuda, that's why it was given from Reuben to Yehuda. When I use by Reuben gefindment zwei in Yonim. By Reuben you find two aspects. Sein Wellen Rativ in Yosef. First, he wanted to save Yosef. It was ein tshuva, then was Bilbi Yitzuyov, and the fact that he did tshuva for confusing his father's bed is mistaber as a automatic given Yehuda's mile in the Beit in Yonim. It makes sense that he wanted to emphasize his both matters, both the matter that in Poel Mamish that wanting to save Yosef, and he didn't save him. And Bilvi Yitzia Aviv, which includes both things. So, Tess, what is the Erof in them? The simple lesson is Ayid Tor sich nicht bei Nugenem mit seinen ganzen Vernommen, nor mit Shleimus Hatzbo. Yid is not allowed to occupy himself only with his own wholesomeness. And Mus Eichom these Askes in Abbas Yisrael. He has to have also the occupation in love thy fellow. In Tona Teivatzveit needing to do a favor for another Yid. Nochmer, even more. The Bald Abbas Yisrael Zel Kol Kula. Loving thy fellow is the entire Torah. Is a feel when that lane is neat in Azachel Madrege. Even when he's not in such a high Madrege via Tzveiter like someone else. Was is in ganzen reingeton in Ton La Leo Shlemes Asme, who is fully engaged and involved in working on his own elevation, his own wholesomeness. Since he occupies himself with the good of the other person, Is verbunden mit kol ha-Torah kula. So then he is tied with the entire Torah. The Rashi says kol ha-Torah kula. Noch mer is as boiled in the Teitzos. Even more, this stands out in the results from the Tzvei and Hogas for Reuven Yehuda, the two conducts of Reuven Yehuda. Through this, that Reuven was occupied in his sack and his fasting, is geworden Efsher, that gave the possibilities, Chiras Yosef, to sell Yosef. Lachar Zagolos Mitzrayim, that brought to the exile of Egypt, the Reish V'Sherish L'chol HaGolias, that was the head in the beginning of all exile. That started. It all started with Yosef being preoccupied with himself. Durch Yehuda sagen, so to come in many, that she's righteous to me. As Gam does company to Milas HaTshuva for Reuven, although it doesn't come to the level of Tshuva of Reuven. And this is the second part that the Rebbe was talking about before, which Rashi brings down from Tamar. The level of Tshuva of Reuven from Desvegen is Dafke to them upending the Geula from Golos. That saves us from the Golos. Again, these are the two parts that Rebbe was talking about before, both in the level of tshuva. Rashi brings down, therefore, the story of Tamar, that from Desvig is Dafke, the fun opening. This level of what saving another yid depends on that. The Geula from Golos, the redemption of Golos. Them is Geboren Peretz. That's how Peretz was born, by saving Tamar. For Surim stammt Malchus based of it. From Peretz comes the government, the kingdom of David, bis Melech HaMashiach, until King Mashiach. Allah HaPeretz Lifneim, Peretz, the son of Peretz, the Peretz, the one who pushed out first, it goes out. That's for reference to Melech HaMashiach, the Geula Achri, the last redeemer, was that Peretz and the Gedra Golus, that will breach through the boundaries of exile, and bring in the Geula Mitul Hashlem Karomamish, and bring the true and complete redemption very soon. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Vayechi Tavshin Lamed.